Please rise for silent invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen.
I pledge
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Town Center CRA, Stan Schmidt.
Present.
Marilyn Ford.
Here.
Chase Tremont.
Here.
Drew Bastian. Scott Stelter.
Here.
John Burnett.
Here.
Ray Donadio.
This is a special meeting. This is not a CRA meeting. This is actually a joint meeting of the CRA and of the City Council together. So we,
So can I call the roll for City Council
I
now?
was waiting for, I figured that, and with that, I'm going to allow the clerk call the roll for the council as well.
Councilmember Ford.
Present.
Councilmember Bastian. Councilmember Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here, I do declare a quorum for both the CRA and for the City Council, so we can continue. Brings us to item 4, Riverwalk Summary Overview for POTC CRA and the City Council meeting. It's a Tim Berman sighting.
All right, Tim Berman, Community Development. The purpose of this overview is a kind of basically a general overview of the proposed amendments and modifications to some of the associated agreements. Kind of everything is kind of interrelated in terms of what the request is, so we thought we'd basically just do an overview, and then we would allow for comment and consideration on those items simultaneously to allow for that discussion, and then at the end, you'd be able to vote individually on those items then. So is that okay format to go from then?
No problems, no questions?
Didn't want to have to repeat myself and bore you guys too much then. So basically, the request is an amendment to the MDA, which is driving a lot of the changes that we've got here before. It pertains to the completion dates for the public trail and park, along with the phase 1 site improvements and the subdivision plat. According to the developer, some of the delays basically in terms of the public trail and park then are related to material delivery. There was a special order required for some of the required pavers, and also there's some coordination with FP&L. One of the big items was the bearing of the FP&L power lines along that roadway corridor. Right now they are waiting on FP&L to bury those lines so they can finish the park improvements, which is resulting in the delay of construction. And the project engineer is here too and can speak more on those delays. But like I said, with those coming up, that's when the applicant approached staff about making the necessary changes to the amendments in anticipation of not being able to hit those milestones that we set because of those delays they were experiencing. So the proposed concept here is to amend the master development agreement. This would extend the public trail and park deadline to November 20th, 2019. As needed, that is basically 60 days beyond. Like I said, basically the engineer can give more information as to an estimated completion on there. We just picked 60 days just to be safe with FP&L schedule. The other item is to complete the phase 1 improvements, which would be pushed out a year until next September. Phase 1 improvements are mainly those that are pretty much the parking lot in here, the retention ponds, along with the eventual construction of the restaurant and the improvements on the point then. Then, of course, there's the subdivision plat to create the 9-lot subdivision. That would be the recording of that would be deferred for another year. As these proposed changes came in the MDA, it made a kind of ripple effect in some of the other agreements that we had then. One was the economic incentive agreement that kind of laid out the time frames when that would kick into play. So this is basically amending that to match the time frame in the MDA. So they won't get their economic incentive until they complete phase 1 improvements. So that's been revised to be next year, September 2020. Same thing with the exchange and the escrow agreement. That's the Cardwell property. If you remember, basically the trade-off was to complete the public park, and then they would get the Cardwell property. So since the park is and the phase 1 improvements are being pushed, to November, and then the phase 1 to next year, the thought was to amend that transfer agreement there. So the developer would get the Cardwell property next year at this time once phase 1 is completed and the park is. Again, just matching those deadlines that we were working with. So those were kind of the agreements that had to be changed and modified. And out of the review of the MDA, the 2 items here on the bottom, the license agreement and the parking agreement, came out of discussions and trying to get a better product as we move forward. The license agreement is a request from the developer. As you know, the marina that currently is there is currently closed, and there's no parking for that right now. What the developer would like to do is have the ability to develop parking on the Cardwell property. Since that would still be owned by the CRA, they're asking for a license agreement to utilize that existing pavement for parking for the marina so they could reopen it. That license agreement would be only valid until next year, September of 2020. And the reason for that is because the permanent parking is required to be done at that time to serve the marina then. So the license agreement would just be a 1 year if they choose to reopen that marina up at, within the year then. And the second item is a parking agreement. This initially is temporary in nature. Basically it's going to be from the area west of the public trail, the area that's currently being cleared, and this would be to the City of Port Orange. The City of Port Orange would basically determine which events that they're going to allow the public to go on to. It just wouldn't be the public at any time to go on. The city would determine a special event at Riverwalk Park. We're going to allow the public park there for overflow parking. That again would basically be temporary in nature, and then the language in there would allow for a more permanent easement to be worked out and agreed upon with the city once the permanent parking is. And that again is to kind of allow the public to use the parking area here during non-hours of the restaurant in the morning to use the park, to use the point aspect there then. So those are kind of the primary components of this proposal. Again, it's mainly just essentially shifting some of the timelines as when things will get constructed. This kind of breakdowns the different phases in terms of the dates then. So the public trail and park proposed delivery date would be again November 2019. That would be all the improvements in the area shaded in blue here. Phase 1 would be the green. That includes the restaurant on the point in September 2020. And there is no change to the time frame for the condominiums, either phase 2 or 3. Those are still as per the economic incentive agreement. And then phase 4 and 5 never had a specified time frame, and that is not changing then. So the policy considerations are to modify the master development agreement to allow for the delivery date for the public trail and park, the phase 1 site improvements to be as the public trail in November, and the phase 1 in September 2020, recording of the plat in 2020. Also, the other is to modify the property exchange agreement, again the Cardwell property, and the economic development incentive agreement, and then the license agreement for the use of the Cardwell property for 1 year, and then the parking easement agreement between the developer, Halifax River Partner, and the city to allow us to utilize the area west of the trail for city event overflow parking as determined by the city. So those are the main ones. Like I said too, some of these items, if there's changes to one, may result in other changes here then, so we have to work through that then. That's why we kind of open them up to the floor. And that's basically the presentation that we have today for you from staff. The developer is here if you'd like to hear from them on their request.
Questions of Tim first? Anyone?
Yes. Are we going to see more presentation before, or is this the time to ask all our questions?
This would be the end of my presentation. The developer, they have a presentation they'd like to make and go over their request then.
The entire project is scheduled to be completed when?
Would be phase 3, which would be the last tower here, is scheduled to be completed September 2025.
Long after us.
All
We're not so long. Any other questions?
Some of us.
What's that?
Long after us.
Tim, what the,
I'll have
the-
more.
for all of the requested timeline changes, did they all have the same last agreement date? From the
Yeah.
last approval? And what was that? What was that date?
The agreement in the last improvement was basically September 20th, 2019, was to complete the.
No, what I'm
public
saying,
trail
when was that agreement was finalized and voted on?
in
approved?
September 2016.
2016, right?
2016 then.
Okay, so we're coming up on 3 years.
Yeah, we're 3 years then. And the restaurant had always been projected to be in the MDA 4 years out there then.
Right.
So that one's just, that timeline's not changing for the restaurant on the point.
Tim, can you go over the TIF agreement? And I'm curious as to, the incentive that was put in on this project. At what point does what point do penalties kick in to where, those incentives are not valid anymore?
Well, they don't, in the incentive agreement, there is basically specific timelines that have to be met, such as, the public trail and park and the phase 1 improvements being completed by September 20th, 2019. If those aren't done, that eliminates that agreement then. So, there would be no incentive agreement if these don't get approved, no incentive agreement after September 20th, 2019.
I mean, I'm not looking to do that, but, this is a long time project. And more delays looks bad on us. And it's bad on the taxpayer that,
Tell you what, why don't we hear from the developer, and then we'll have our vibrant discussion.
And we have
I'm
tried
sure
to
we'll be
push
vibrant.
basically with what is being developed here to get the public improvement parts completed as soon as possible with that November, such as a trail also, which you don't see under there. There is, I think, a 12-inch water line that was installed, new 6-inch force main, and a reuse line. So there's a lot of underground utility work that was also done too. That's public improvements. So a lot of the public improvements we're trying to be pushed to basically be completed within that November timeframe. The ones that are to push to September are the private, the parking lot, the landscaping. So we did try to focus on getting the public what they needed and get that trail open as soon as possible.
and I see the extra
Hold on, Chase,
stuff.
I'm not trying to cut you off, but I don't want to be repetitious, because we're going to ask them these same questions twice at the end, and we are time crunched with council meeting today.
No, that's fine. But final comments, I see the extra stuff that they've been doing, and I'm pleased with that, so, going forward.
Most activity I've seen down there in years. Okay, let's hear from them.
Good evening, Jeff Brock, 444 Seabreeze Boulevard, Suite 900, Daytona Beach, Florida, 32118, representing the developer, Halifax River Partners, and its principal, Joe Atanasoski, who is here tonight with his design team. Before we get started talking about the documents, I'd like to give you an update on where Riverwalk is since last time we met, what's been done, and a little bit of an overview. So the lands comprising the public trail and park were conveyed to the city. You now own those. The developer is spending $1.2 million putting a park on your lands for you. To date, the stormwater for the park is, the ponds have been dug, the utilities have been put underground except for FPL pulling the cable and the conduit and removing the overhead. The concrete's been poured for the park, and it's moving quite along. The two hang-ups are the FPL removing their facilities and installing the cable and the conduit, and a back order of some pavers. We have cleared the parking lot. You can see the clearing going on right now. We intend to put some grass seed on that, allow overflow parking for your special events. We have applied to a demo permit for the Cardwell. We are removing asbestos from Cardwell Funeral Home, and then we'll demolish it. That will happen on time. We also are excited to announce that we have an operator for the restaurant on the Point.
Yay.
We've brought that team with us tonight to make a presentation to you on their vision on what they're going to do with this 10,000 square foot restaurant that we are going to construct and have open next September. And so with that, I'd like to invite Sid to come up and tell you about his operations and what he sees happening at Riverwalk.
All right.
Sid.
Hello everyone. Excuse me, I'm just gonna pull this up, get this all prepared. I'm sorry, Tim, Roy, perfect. Use the mic? I don't think so. Alrighty, my name is Sid. This is Rick.
All right.
just here to talk about our concept we're building in 2020 here. I've had 8+ years of experience in the restaurant industry. I work with my father, who has over 15 years. We've had over 20 restaurants in the past 13 to 14 years. So we have a large seafood restaurant in Stuart, Florida right now. It's an incredible concept and it's been very successful. So we're bringing it here in Port Orange. We're very excited. It will be called the Fish Bar and Grill. So it will be a mix of authentic American, Japanese, and Italian cuisines within a family-friendly atmosphere. It's an all-in-one concept that's heavily involved with the communities. And I'll dive more into that in a minute here. All right, so I just want to touch on the design. Joseph and his architects have come up with an incredible yacht design. It'll be a 10,000 square foot building, a double 2-story, and it will be a waterfront restaurant. We'll have waterfront dining. We'll have over 250 seats outside, over 600 seating altogether in a restaurant. And so this is the design build out from the top. It does kind of look like a floating fish. And so about the concept. So we will have live music, indoors and outdoors, 7 days a week. Right now at our other location, it's called the Twisted Tuna. We have live music 7 days a week as well, and it brings a lot of people in. This is just a 14-second clip of how our weekends look with the live music. It's a very local restaurant. It's not a lot of people come from all over the place, but pardon me, they do, but it's still very locally involved. So here's just a 14-second clip of our. So I'm sorry, I guess it's not angled correctly, but you can see there's an outside barge. It's a floating barge where they actually play the music. We have a bar outside as well. And so it's a very unique scene outside, and it'll be the same type of build out at the Fish. We will have a banquet facility that will cater weddings, private parties, corporate events. It'll seat up to 300 people, so definitely be very beneficial.
That'll be a big hit. There's not a lot of
Yes.
vendors for that.
Yes, exactly. And then you have that waterfront view as well, so it would be a very beautiful location.
$1 million view.
We will have a marina with multiple dock slips, so guest parking will be available. This is actually our current restaurant right now. Same type of build out with the dock slips. Here's a kind of a view from a drone.
Where's that at?
This is the Twisted Tuna in
Where?
Port Salerno, Stuart, Florida. So guest parking, and then you can actually do monthly rentals as well. And that'll be the case here in Port Orange. And we will have 3 full bars, 15 beer taps on each bar, 4 separate kitchens. This is what makes our concept really unique, and Rick will touch up on this a bit more. So our main kitchen will have American seafood and land cuisines. And then we will have a unique pizza kitchen, a sushi kitchen, and a raw bar. So this is where the Italian, the Japanese, and the American dishes kind of combine, and it just works. It's worked for us really well. It's very unique. So it's a large menu. With a menu this size, we promise that everybody will have a meal available for them. Just to kind of go over what type of menu it's going to be like, I'll just review the Twisted Tuna menu that we currently have. I guess it's giving me a little issues, but maybe I can pull that up later. But Rick, I'll just let you kind of touch on some of the main food products that we have and what we have to offer. So.
Hi, my name is Rick Jalila. I'm the Director of Operations for the Twisted Tuna. I've done this for over 40 years. And first and foremost, we'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak in front of you. This is a beautiful community. I've been coming up here for over 2.5 years now, trying to get this piece of property. So I want to thank you. What we're really bringing to the community is about 120 plus jobs. And I want that to be first and foremost. Our priority is employing families and let them have the opportunity to make a very good living. We have plenty of people that work for us that make a very good living with us. You saw the clip of the music and the structure of the outdoor atmosphere. I also want to let you know that we comply with all noise ordinance. There's very little issues we have. We follow all rules and regulations of the town. So that's not going to be an issue. Whatever you want us to do, we do it, and we do it very well. We have a very successful restaurant, and just to give you an insight about our menu, 5 years ago, we came up with a concept, and the concept touches a part that caters to everyone and all needs of food aspects. We have a sushi area, we have a raw beer area, we have pizza that we make from homemade scratch, and we have land and sea cuisines. We have kids friendly night in which we bring in a artist to paint their faces. Kids eat free on Wednesday night. So we touch upon everything that we can. We're big in the banquet scene. We're big in the community. We like to give back to the community because the community is what makes us popular, and we keep on growing our business every single year. Since we opened the Twisted Tuna, we have reported increases of 20%. So right now, we think we're a good fit for your area. We think this area is just absolutely beautiful. I mean, the view, yes, it's second to none, but driving around here, it's green, it's live, it's vibrant, and that's what we want to be in, a community like this. That's what makes us thrive in communities like this. So if there's any specific questions you have about anything, I'll be more than happy to answer them, but we just want to be a part of your community and grow with you guys. That's our biggest thing. Mayor, I like you. What do you want to ask me?
Oh, I'm sure.
So-
I'm floored because, quite frankly, I've got to say this up front right now. Usually, this kind of an announcement comes at the end of the project, and not now. I mean, this is a tremendous act of faith on your part, and yours for being able to step out and say, "Hey, we're coming now." Everybody likes to keep these announcements under wraps for the longest time, to the last second. Who's coming in? This the whisper thing. Not here. I mean, this is as open and transparent, and it's going to allow us to get excited. And actually, what you've done is you've created a huge problem for all of us up here, because now we're going to be hounded with questions every day. How long until they open? How long until they open? So.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm a fan. I appreciate hearing this, you know, I mean, this is the kind of stuff I want to hear more of down there at Riverwalk, things that are happening, things, tangible things to look forward to. And I've got 4 kids. I'll see you every Wednesday.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you mind
Appreciate it.
mind if I continue a little bit and kind of go through some of the annual events? Are we?
Please do.
Yeah. Okay.
There's the sushi.
Yeah.
That's the lobster roll.
It's the lobster roll.
Yes, sir.
It's that 180s. It's that 186 computer we're using.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. It's just taking a little while to load.
This says white clam. We do a white clam pizza, which is very popular.
I want to keep it on the other view so we can see it.
Yeah.
Escape out of
Get
there.
on the
Okay.
side.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
fine.
Do that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right. This is just some food items. I mainly want to touch on the annual events that we have each year. That's the stuff that I'd like to kind of present to you. But some seafood stuff you want to put out?
Yeah. What's very important to us is that everybody has different taste buds. Everyone has different things. We didn't just want to be a seafood restaurant, but we wanted to offer something for everyone. Kind of like a one-stop shop, kind of like a Walmart, you know? And what we've hit on is something that works for everyone. You got mom who wants sushi, you got dad who wants fresh mahi platter, you got the kids who want chicken fingers, which is very popular. And we have some dishes that are second to none that people haven't created throughout the industry that we've come about. We have an Aloha burger that we use specific sauce in there to make it kind of a nip to it. It's actually has some pokey sauce in it that we blend into our meat and gives it a different flavor profile. The thing that we've done is that we don't want to be like every restaurant or have everybody have the same dish or everyone has this type of burger or that type of burger. We want to throw things in there that nobody has had. And that's what makes us, every year we do a menu revision. We add things, we take things off. But what makes us different from everybody is that we create an atmosphere that people want to come to. We want to be known as a destination location, but we also first and foremost want to be known as your community neighborhood seafood and bar. I mean, we want all the locals to feel like it's their home, and we're going to make it like that. And that's just our motto, period. This is going to be our home if you allow us, and we hope that we see everybody there 6 times a week, 1 day off.
So just diving into some of the annual events we throw each year. A seafood festival, a hot dog contest, customer appreciation day, a luau, a pirates festival, and a Halloween bash. So the seafood festival is a very unique festival for us. We had about 30 to 40,000 people on average every year for this festival, and that's based off just 1 day alone. And we're pushing it to a 2-day festival coming up next year in January. And here you can see we have local vendors everywhere, so we promote them. We get all the small businesses involved. I always believe that their success is our success. And we involve local fishermen a lot as well. So we allow them to increase awareness for them and distribute fresh fish to guests. It's a family-friendly atmosphere. All ages are welcome. It's a weekend full of food, drinks, games, and more. And most importantly, it's not your typical fare. It's based off of local businesses and vendors. The prices, the shows, events, and entertainment, it's all tailored for our city, for Port Orange. So that's what makes it unique. We really take our city, our community into consideration before putting this live.
If I could just touch on that, the Seafood
Yeah.
Festival, what really separates us is giving back to the community like we do. Part of the proceeds here, or pretty much a large part of the proceeds here, benefit our local fishermen, and that's who we give the proceeds to, is our local fishermen. We have a bunch of restaurants and vendors that come, and it's a great day, but it's one of our events that we use in which we give back to our local fishermen, and we give them a check for a large amount of the proceeds that we take in. All these events look fun and exciting, and they are. But what we do is, like I said, we create excitement. We like to give back to local charities. We have been involved in the Wounded Warriors Association, and we like to continue stuff like that. We're very big in stuff like that, and we will continue to do that. We just want to bring it up here and bring it to your community, and hopefully you'll accept us. And like I said, this is one event that we do, which we do many of them.
Correct. We have a hot dog eating contest. It gets pretty competitive. We have cash and prize giveaways. It is a family-friendly atmosphere as well. Here's an iconic pic of a 10-year-old child out there rooting for his, whoever it is. And then we have a customer appreciation day, and this is pretty special too. So anybody who walks in our restaurant's door at that day, will leave with a full stomach. And it's a special day for us because, regardless of what's happening in your life at that point, we advertise, we promote this with our own money, and we feed whoever walks in that door. And so it's just a way to spread love to our locals and kind of give back to the community. So we do this every year. It's a big event every year, and we're really proud to do it every year.
I skipped dinner. Can we do that today?
We have a luau event as well. This is just a big Hawaiian party. It's a traditional Hawaiian party. We have authentic dancers, live music, family-friendly atmosphere again, and we cap the night off with a nice pig roast. And then we have a Mermaid and Pirates Festival we do each year. It's usually a Friday and Saturday event. On Friday, we have a Pirates Ball, and we sell tickets, which include a dinner buffet, a costume contest, and live music. So here's just a picture of contestants, getting all dressed up and all. And then on Saturday we have our actual Pirates Festival, which is similar to the Seafood Festival. It's just a smaller scale. So again, costumes, local vendors, businesses, family friendly. We have a kids costume contest on that day as well, so it's good for them. And then we end our year off with a Halloween bash. And so similar to the Pirates Fest, it's a costume contest, hundreds of participants each year, and prizes and awards. Here's some pictures of just participants. But again, very community involved. Just want to get as many people as we can into this building and celebrate with us. And that is it. September 2020, Fish Bar and Grill. Thank you so much for your time. We're very excited to be part of this.
I do have a card that's in my car. I can get you that. That's not. I'll give all you guys a card if you want. Thank you. Thank you for hearing us, and thank you. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
All right, it's me again. Pleased to make that announcement here tonight. The design is underway, kitchen being designed, things are happening. Just want to let you know Riverwalk is moving forward. So what is the ask tonight? The ask tonight is basically three things. One, an extension of 60 days to get the park delivered to you. As you can see out there, we're out there working. Drove by there on the way here. Contractors were still working as 4 o'clock. So movement is happening. The other ask is not to pave the parking lot, just to clear it and put grass seed down. So we're talking about just not paving and putting the associated stormwater in and timing that when the restaurant comes in. If you recall, the reason why the parking lot was coming is because we had Captain Daddy's out there, and it needed a parking lot because it had a temporary parking lot. Well, as you know, the hurricane took away Captain Daddy's, and so there really is no business to have a parking lot for at this time. So we'd like to time it with the opening of the restaurant, make some sense that we don't tear it all up when we're trying to construct the restaurant, et cetera. So the ask is to defer the paving and the associated stormwater for the parking lot a year until the restaurant is coming online. We are not asking to delay the restaurant. Yes, sir.
Will that area at least still be ground used for parking?
Yeah, it'll be seeded with grass, and you can use it for your special events for this next year. That's what that license is about. So you'll have some overflow parking. And then finally, the platting, recording the plat with the restaurant, not doing it now because you'd have to bond off the public improvements, and you'd be locked in on those lot sizes, and we might adjust those lot lines a little bit. And so that's really the three asks. It looks like a lot of asks because there's a lot of documents, but it's really hopefully not too big of an ask for you. There was a question about the TIF. There really is no TIF until the restaurant's built because the property values our property values are going down because we deeded you the park. So we have less land right now. So again, the TIF really starts kicking in with the restaurant, and we're not delaying that. And I'd be open for any questions you might have. And we're here on a unanimous approval from the planning board.
Come back to that.
Stan?
No.
Marilyn, questions?
The question on the temporary parking lot, you said you're gonna seed it with grass?
Mhm.
Will you be maintaining and mowing the grass, or are you
Sure.
expecting? Okay.
Kind of a question overall for Riverwalk. You know, I'm not, you know, no disrespect to the current plan, but I'll be honest, it's not my preferred vision down there with two huge condos. But as an elected official, I'm not in any position to advise someone how to do their business. But I am in a position to try to cast a vision for the city. My question is, have you guys, have the developers considered any alternative vision for that downtown? You know, more of a, more mixed use of an area, or is the plan to continue to drive home and go ahead with the two big story condos, or are there any other visions that you guys are considering? Going a different route?
Well, I mean, we consider everything, but the current plan is to go forward with the towers, but we are,
And of course,
as
this
we
is
try
just
to
in the
market
middle
that.
phase.
What's that?
And of course, this is just in the middle phase.
Right.
Because there's a southern face of this where we may see a lot of mixed use.
Of course.
And then, of course, you've got some property and, you know, there's some flexibility down the road but there does need to be mixed use in that area in the whole project.
Yeah, and I know the market is what determines, you know, what you want to put there.
Right.
My pulse of talking to the residents, that's what they're hoping for.
Mhm.
So if that means
Okay.
anything.
Well, we appreciate the input.
Thanks.
Scott? The room seems kind of free over here. Seem kind of lonely down there.
I'll come sit with you in the break.
Any other questions that we have of community development on this presentation or the developer on this presentation before we move on to item 5? There being none, we will move on to item 5. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're only allowed to come back when you have good news like this. Just
Okay.
keep that in mind.
Okay.
That did not hurt. Item 5, I'm going to read the ordinance. I'm going to accept 2 motions after I read the ordinance. One will be on behalf of the CRA for approval and second. Then I will accept a second motion on behalf of the council. Please state so when you make your motion, because this is a joint special meeting of the council and CRA. Ordinance number 2019-30 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the First Amendment to the Riverwalk amended and restated Master Development Agreement, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. I'll take a motion on behalf of the CRA for approval.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-30.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. I'd like the same motion on behalf of the council.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Item's open for discussion. Jake, you want to frame this one for us? What exactly it is we're approving with this ordinance?
I'll have Tim, so I don't misstep and say something that
That
we're.
works for me.
This item is the amendment to the Master Development Agreement. This would give the park deadline in the MDA to be November 20th, 2019, and then defer the recording of the plat and the Phase 1 improvements to next September 2020. And that's basically the extent of the MDA amendment.
Okay. Tim, what kind of difficulties have led up to the request for extended time?
Legal, I had to deal with FP&L in terms of getting that. I mean, the power lines is major work that has to be done to bury in that area then to complete the project. There was also some delays in getting a special paver that we want to basically make that design there, getting that in there, and just day-to-day operations basically with the construction site then.
What do you mean special pavers? They were never changed.
It was basically the color, the paver color then had to be special ordered then. And there was they can speak more on that, but there was a delay in getting that special ordered paver in to get the design that we had approved.
From 3 years ago?
No, the design of the walkway was not approved 3 years ago, just the concept of the 20-foot wide walkway. The design of the trail was approved last August then. As when the site plan came in is when we approved the actual design of how the trail will look then. So that's only been in effect for about a year now.
So, but they purchased pavers, so if they weren't sure which kind to get, why were pavers purchased in the first place? Or were there not some pavers already purchased?
That's a
That was
developer.
for the contractor on that end. Then basically, like I said, we approved the site plan back in August, September of last year, and released them to start construction then. And it's the contractor then who basically at that point will basically order the materials then, and they can speak more toward the order of materials and some of the delays that they ran into in getting those materials in.
Why don't we hear about that right now, because, well, it's on the floor.
Good afternoon, Parker Minchenberg, 1729 Ridgewood Avenue. We had a,
Parker, pull that a little bit towards you. Thank you.
the issue with the pavers is we had a coral and a sand color on one of the permitted plans. So we actually got pavers out there that we're going to be sending back one of the colors. We have blue pavers coming. That's the special order. It's a blue color. And it was an issue, we could have ordered them earlier. So once we found out that the two colors, one of them wasn't acceptable, we ordered the blue pavers immediately. They're being made right now. But I'd say the bigger issue, and I developed a project myself a little while back, FP&L had held me up about 5 months getting the electrical in. So they've had the conduit in the ground. We're now waiting for one of FP&L's subcontractors to come take the wires off the poles and run them through the conduits. So I think that's the bigger issue is we need a couple more months. We might beat that, but we wanted to make sure we didn't have to come back and ask for a few more days. But we're confident with those 2 extra months that we'll get her done.
So the pavers aren't so much of an issue. You can't put the pavers in anyway until the underground work's done.
That's right. The pavers are not the last thing. The landscaping and irrigation are the last thing, but I'd say 95% of the concrete for the pathway is in, if you've been down there. And you also see stacks and stacks of pavers. Actually, half of those are not going to be put in. They're going to be replaced with these blue pavers that are on special order. So I think you guys will be happy with it. And again, I think the power thing was the bigger delay than the pavers.
Okay.
Mayor, let me just check with Parker and verify. You said something. So the pavers and the power are mutually exclusive. Is that correct? You could put the pavers in without the conduit, the power being run through the
Yeah,
conduit.
we actually, yes.
Yeah,
but
that's what I thought.
There is a section at the very south end
Yeah.
that the power poles have to come down before we can pump the concrete.
Right.
So they are tied together in that aspect.
There you go. And the not that I doubt Parker, but I think I've told you, Mayor, I've talked to Linda Webster from FP&L, and she's verified that the subcontractors, they're having problems with the subcontractor getting them out here to pull the wire. So I'm tracking that. I'm trying to push some movement from FP&L with the staff, and obviously Parker's pulling them from their end. So
My understanding is they have
hopefully
3
we'll get something
approved
done.
contractors, and they're doing all this work everywhere in Volusia County and
That's right.
other places as well. So just not happening as fast as we'd like.
It's looking good down there. I mean, I like the walk I had just the other day.
It's kind of nice to be able to see the river from the road. Marilyn, go ahead.
I'm happy with the report today, but I think it does beg the question that this was originally approved back in 2016. And so my question would be, or can you speak to, I understand the issue with the paver and FP&L, but did you start early enough? And what assurance, or what can you say to address diligence so that if we extend the deadline, you won't be before us again asking for another one? This is my district.
Yes, ma'am.
I haven't even, before I even raised this with citizens, I would be at the local garage and they'd say, don't give them another extension. And so you've got to understand, it's not just myself, but I think it's the residents that have grown weary
Understood.
of hearing about one more plan for Riverwalk. And I think it's very heartening that we heard about the restaurant today, but how can you address diligence and making sure we don't have a problem again?
I think 2 comments. I think we probably could have started earlier and probably delivered on time. So that's the first salvo.
Okay.
We ran into the issue with the paver color, and as soon as that issue came up, we did special order them. That was a couple months ago. And we have got a estimate now based on what we hope FP&L is going to do on when we can deliver, and I think it's comfortable based on what the contractor's telling us that we're not going to be back here for another extension. So, I grew up in Daytona Beach area. I'm anxious for this to come to fruition. I know the city is as well, and I think we have a commitment on the park. We need 2 more months. In the big scheme of things, that's not a big ask, but I understand at the same time we are missing a deadline. So hopefully you guys will give us another 60 days to get it done, and I think you'll be very proud of it once it's completed.
Scott?
I don't have any questions for my general comments in a minute.
Okay. Before we get to that, anyone here from the public wish to speak to this item? There being none, back to us. Final comments and questions? Why don't we start with you, Scott?
So, this is a sensitive spot for the community. It's been a point of discussion for over 2 decades and continuing. By the way, I know it doesn't really have anything to do with the agenda items, but I like the concept of the restaurant. I think it would do great. I think it'd be a big success. That being said, we've had other presentations, and we've seen other visions of restaurants. It's almost like the carrot and the stick type of a thing. And so I don't mean any disrespect by that, but until we see something rising up out of the ground and grand opening nights and things like that, it's the ability to get excited over that kind of stuff has somewhat been lost. The city has made agreements and incentives with timelines for a reason, and I think it's time for the city and this council to stick to these timelines and agreements. I get things happen, but you look all over East Volusia County particularly. I was up in Daytona just the other day touring the Margaritaville, Latitude Margaritaville that Minto Builders is developed, and they've only been up and running less than 24 months. It's almost like they've built an entire city. It is amazing. Pavers of every color you can think of, by the way. But I mean, it is impressive what contractors and developers that are motivated to meet timelines and move forward can get done. And so, I'm not as willing to extend any timelines and agreements that have already been made. I think it's time to start meeting timelines and agreements. This vision of Riverwalk is it's almost ancient now. It is. I've been
almost.
Yeah, it is. For somebody who was born and raised here and been part of this city now since 1989, it's almost a forgotten vision. And short presentations and a little bit of progress here and there. It seems to be more progress because we're kind of behind. And then, we got to get something done, and let's start jumping and doing some things. That just, I don't know. It's a little frustrating. I got to be honest. It's just frustrating. It is what it is. But we've made some agreements. We've put some timelines out there, and for me, I'm going to stick to the timelines. So I will not be supporting an extension of any timelines.
Jake, what happens if we don't extend? What happens then?
So
Let's talk about what we're talking about.
if we don't extend, then the city has the option to execute the bond, and that doesn't mean somebody sends us a check for $1 million and we go on about our way. At that point, we would talk to the bond company, execute the bond, and finish the project on our own or with another contractor, or possibly, and I don't know the legality of this, with the same contractor working for us. But with that comes the government bureaucracy of working with the city. Based on my time here, I would say I can't get the city to get that done in the 60 days that Parker says he thinks he can get it done. The staff would have to start working with FP&L. The staff would have to start working with the paver guy. The staff would have to start working with the concrete guy and finish it up. And that's just the public part. The rest of it is that's their property, and they would do that. So going that route would send a clear message, but it would also delay getting the park done, and it would not speed up any other issue. It wouldn't make the restaurant happen any quicker. It wouldn't make the restaurant happen any slower. And so that's what we would do. From the way so Margaret and I worked about that letter of credit or that bond. In the case where the developer, and it was a different face at the time, walked away from the project, and we had to do it on our own. We wanted to get it done. And in this case, the developer's not walking away. The developer's asking for a 60-day extension. So that puts us, as far as executing that contract, in a delayed position. I personally don't like the delay either, and I understand there might be other ways that you would like to send a stern warning to the developer to remain on track for the rest, than executing the bond.
Are we here though because staff realized that they weren't going to meet the timelines? They didn't come to us. We went to them, right?
No, they came to us.
Okay, but so the issue that I have is that basically what you're saying, and I don't mean to change your words, but
Please.
what we're doing is we're creating agreements with bonds in place that serve only to hold our residents hostage of their own selves. It doesn't make sense. And sooner or later, we have to make stands for timelines and agreements. And if there were ever, this is just my opinion, gentlemen and ladies, but if there were ever a project in an area where we need to start taking those stands, this is the one. And
Well,
this is the area. That's
there's other options for there are other options for dinging them for missing the timeline, and we can talk through those. It doesn't have to be walking away from the public the public walkway and starting from scratch. We can talk a little bit about the maximum TIF amount. We can renegotiate the MDA if we need to, or the incentive agreement. But the counter argument to that is the developer has offered up a few things to kind of pay for that 60-day delay that I'm sure they offered up in coordination with the city, and we've said, you know, if you're going to do that, you might consider the following things that we need: parking, get rid of Cardwell, which is a asbestos problem for me, and a homeless problem for me, and a few other things, and they've agreed to do that. The other thing that
In other words, what you're saying is they're not getting this 60 days clean.
they're not getting the 60 days clean. Parker has indicated to us, and so has Joseph. I've had a few conversations with Joseph that they wish they had got started sooner. They didn't. They're in the situation they're in, and this is what they're going to do to kind of make amends for that 60 days. The next indication is can we build a restaurant on the point in a year? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a year from now. Can it be done? Sure. Is it going to be done? We can't wait till 6 months out and start building. We're not going to make it. But if we get a site plan in and work through that, it could be done. But
So
you're
de-
right.
So detail for me then, so what does the taxpayer get for allowing a 60-day extension? What does the taxpayer gain?
The public park, 60 days late, instead of the public park, maybe,
So they're not getting anything different that they would have been getting if they met the timeline? Did I misunderstand?
so this is what they're getting. They're getting parking on their property for Riverwalk events
For a year?
for a year, which if we were, if we didn't come to some compromise, they could say, fine, execute the bond, you're not gonna park on our land. I would very much like that. That's why when we started talking, we went through that. I would like that. I have parking problems down there during big events. We have multiple big events. It would be very nice to have parking on that side where people aren't crossing US 1. The other thing that would cost me, not a lot of money, but money, upwards of $15,000 is the demolition of Cardwell. That's costing me a little bit of a problem with homeless, and they can take care of that. So I very much would like that to be done too. So those are kind of the things that I said, if you want the 60-day extension, could you do these things in return? So I felt that was a good trade, a year's worth of unimproved parking until they can get the restaurant. So that's what they get for their 60-day extension. That granted, and Parker mentioned this, had they started sooner, they would have been done on time, but they didn't, and now the delay is not wholly something that they have control of, mainly the FP&L.
And let's also recognize they've had some changes in their ownership group too that have affected the project. Then now, granted, that's a they problem, not a we problem. But I also live in the real world where if they're given 1,095 days to do something and they're asking for 60 more and there's some mitigating reasons and they're willing to do something for us in the meantime, I wouldn't say yes to this without the things that they're willing to offer. It would be foolhardy. But at the same time, I also am in no hurry to go into the contractor business, which is what happens when you call a bond for something like this. I'd rather run a city than be a contractor myself.
And
So are
there's
we
a-
cutting our nose off to spite our face?
Well,
That's the question I'm asking.
Here's the other. Let me put a little bit of people into this that you know is important to me. Since they came forward with the site plan, I've had, I don't know, Joseph, 8 or 9, maybe 10 face-to-face interactions with Joseph, and he has always met me in the middle, if not slightly on either side of it, with his team on working through things, including conversations about future of that area, to include our land south of there. So I would I'm not a voter, so I'll in this case, but I will pitch to you that my relationship with the developer has been very good, and I don't want that relationship to sour too much between now and final completion of the project to 25, and that there's some merit to keeping that relationship whole as well. So I share that with you.
Other questions or comments? Chase, Stan, Marilyn? Marilyn, go ahead.
I think Jason's got
I can wait.
No, go right ahead.
I certainly share Scott's frustration, and when you hear it from the community members as well. Also, as a baseball coach, sometimes I'd if my pitcher was down in the count, I might take him out or I might leave him in there. Depends on the flow of the game, and sometimes more often than not, I like to let them work through the challenges they're facing, especially if they've made strides throughout the inning. And I think I think the developer's doing that, especially with the things that have been added, things demo we don't have to do, parking that to be there. And frankly, I appreciated the honesty when Marilyn asked, did you start on time? And you just came forward with it. So that being said, it doesn't mean I'm going to give him another inning afterwards. So I'm willing to support the extension for right now. But my pitcher gets in trouble again, and it's hard to not take him out at the end in that situation. So I would support this with the understanding that we answer to the public as well, and everything that Scott said was 100% on. But I want to lean into looking at the overall big final project picture, and I can deal with a 60-day delay. Knowing that other mitigating factors have been addressed, and that I appreciate, and I want to reward that.
My comments are relative to the park as well as the entire project. I was prepared based on my knowledge of the project and input from citizens to vote against it. However, after looking at everything and talking with Jake, and I think he's alluded to it, there has been a change in manager for the project. And since the change in manager, there has been progress. It's my understanding there has been real progress and an attempt to get this to completion. And so I think it is important to give an opportunity to fulfill that, and I am prepared to vote for a deadline, but with a clear statement that I think our residents and myself and the area are weary of being asked to do continuing deadlines. But Jake has really worked most with the manager, and I haven't. And with his interactions, he's seen real progress. And so I think based on that, it's been more than good faith. It's been real progress, and I'm willing to grant an extension.
Stan, you got final questions or comments?
No, I'm also a member of the Planning Commission, and this came before us without any kind of date deadline. And at that time, the Planning Commission expressed frustration, just as we've heard from the council members.
No doubt.
And that's when we brought forward the 60-day. And I believe at that point in time, we heard from the developers that they believed at the time that we could get it done. And we also recapped the mitigation factors that were worked into this thing. I know how frustrated people are. I've been here since '87, so but I'm willing to do the 60 days for the public park finish up, and then just really hope we don't have any hurricanes, so there's no slowdown on the restaurant. And I'm sure the restaurateurs don't want that
say
either.
the H word here. We don't say the H word.
The storm thing.
Thank you. I know the first time I heard of anything about Riverwalk, the first rumblings, the first newspaper articles, the first stories, my son was first born. He just started his senior year of college today. So it's been a while. When I look at it that way, 60 days is not a lot. But I can honestly say, watching what has gone on the privately developed portion of it in the last couple of months, if I hadn't seen that progress, I would not be inclined to even think about an extension at all today. But I have, and I appreciate good faith. But in my eyes, this is the mulligan. Stay on top of it. We all want to see a positive result. And if I'm going to give a mulligan, it's got to be earned. And I think this one has been earned partly because of good faith. You showed a lot of that today, partly because of honesty and frankness. Parker, thank you. I appreciate that. But with that in mind, we all have our limits. So with that, call the roll as the CRA.
Stan Schmidt.
Yes.
Marilyn Ford.
Yes.
James Tremont.
Yes.
Scott Stiltner.
No.
John Burnett.
Yes. Is it 4-1? Yeah. Call the roll as council.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
No.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. 3-1. You had a chance to flip. You got to vote twice. You could change your mind. Thank you. Brings us to discussion item, license agreement for Tipper.
Mayor, excuse me. I didn't mean
Yep.
to interrupt,
No, we didn't open.
No, not at all.
even though I did. Excuse me. No,
Yes, go
no,
ahead.
please, beg my forgiveness.
I'm good. Item 6, license agreement for temporary off-site parking located at 3571 Ridgewood Avenue, Cardwell Funeral Home property. It's a discussion item. Jake?
So this is the off-site parking that Mr. Brock mentioned. We're going to allow the developer to demolish Cardwell and allow them to use that parking lot, which will be a flat lot, and well, it already is a parking lot for the most part, and use it for a temporary parking lot for the marina, so they can open up the marina, the one that already exists on the north portion of the restaurant point, if you will. That's a paved parking area. It's going to be there. They need one. And as the developer had mentioned, that they don't want to pave areas while they're building the restaurant. So that area is already paved, it already exists. That's going to be a temporary parking area for the marina. We support that, and Cardwell will be gone, which is on my list.
Do you know what the timeline for the removal of the building would be?
Of Cardwell?
Yeah,
Tomorrow?
works for me.
The permit has been issued, or at least it's up, ready to go.
Okay.
So that'll happen fairly quickly.
Questions or comments on this item? Anyone? Okay. Discussion item, First Amendment to the Property Exchange and Escrow Agreement, Cardwell Funeral Home property. Jake?
Yes, sir, this is the First Amendment to change the agreement to transfer the property in September of 20 instead of September of 19. It extends it 1 year in accordance with what the developer and Tim talked about. This was supposed to switch upon all Phase 1 public improvements, and all Phase 1 public improvements aren't done. They're asking for a 1-year extension for that, so this aligns it for that 1-year extension, so we're not giving them Cardwell before the public improvements are complete.
So we're making sure the timeline falls in line with expectations.
No finish, no property.
Okay. Comments or questions on this discussion item?
We don't need any motions for these, do we?
No, they're just discussion items. Item 8 is discussion item. Discuss First Amendment to the Economic Development Incentive Agreement. I know we touched on that with some of your questions earlier, so here we are.
That is correct, and this also just changes the timeline to meet the new timeline.
Questions or comments? Well, it's just getting easier and easier. We did the hard part, huh? Item 9 is discuss parking easement between Halifax River Partners LLC and the City of Port Orange.
This is the arrangement between the HRP and the city to allow the public to park, a license agreement allowing the public to park on their property. As Mr. Brock told you, they'll be maintaining the property as required for mowing and whatnot.
And this easement, explain where this easement's located again?
It's the unimproved lot that's being cleared right now. Tim, don't we have a video or a graphic of it?
I think people want to make sure that we know where it is that we were talking about.
There you go.
There we go.
The area all shaded with the hatch marking there would be the area available for the parking with that easement.
And I tell you what, I'm going to really enjoy riding my bicycle down along Ridgewood Avenue and being able to see the river as I go by without having to go down there. That's something that's gonna be new for all of us for a little while. Maybe even get a little river breeze up Ridgewood wouldn't hurt at all. Up Charles Street, we'll see. Any questions or comments on this item? There being none, Margaret, do we have anything else?
Yes, I believe there's one more item as a result of the decision you made on the first reading. I've encouraged Mr. Berman to consider extending the site and
SIA.
subdivision improvement agreement until September 17th, when you have your second reading on the ordinance. This allows the project and the paperwork to stay fully in order until your second reading.
Okay, so that's information. Is that something we need to act on?
I want you to be aware of it. Tim has the authority to extend that site plan, but I didn't want him to take that step without your full knowledge and understanding that that would be occurring.
Appreciate that. With that, comments?
Mayor, I apologize, it's Jake, sorry. I apologize. The diagram that Tim just showed you, it's hopefully plainly obvious, but I want to state that whole easement area, at some point, they will start constructing the restaurant. And some of that area would probably be used for laydown and construction, and therefore, we will work with the developer to not park there. I don't want to say, no, you told us we could park here, and stop the restaurant. So that whole area is available, but we'll ensure that we remain out of the way of each other when it comes to public parking.
And keeping it safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Comments, board members and council members? Start with Marilyn. Final comments? Being
No
none?
comments.
Stanley?
Nothing new?
Chase?
No.
Scott?
No.
Second reading of this ordinance will be held on September 17th. So we will be back at it, well, that's 4 weeks from tonight for second reading. I just want to thank you all. I appreciate bringing good news up front didn't hurt. I appreciate the fact that you step up, that you're working down there. And I also accept the fact that you had to swallow your pride a little bit and accept some responsibility. But your honesty is valued, it absolutely is. Because usually when that question's asked, we've seen it way too many times where somebody starts into the Texas two-step, and we don't appreciate it. So that says a lot about you and your group. With that, the joint city council meeting and CRA meeting is adjourned, and we will be back in 18 minutes as council.